In today's show, of course, the Blazers won again. That's what they do this time in overtime against the Suns with a little bit of Dominayton. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen. Coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen and tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, we're doing what we do in every show. We're talking about Trailblazers win. That's what they do. They win all the time. Of course, if you're a longtime listener to this program, you know that I think the Blazers are both have wonderful chemistry. They're perfectly aligned from top to bottom throughout the organization and riddled with talent. So, of course, they keep winning. Winners of 8 of 9. That's all they do. They swept 2 home games against the Suns. This one in OT, we're going to talk all about it. 121-119. Dominayton, your boy, DeAndre Ayton, was really good to close this game. They don't win this game with with sort of the level he played at down the stretch and the intensity. Chauncey Billups called it one of his best games, maybe his best game in a Blazers uniform. And I think that it really speaks to the box score that Chauncey was looking at because it wasn't your typical Ayton box score. We'll talk all about that. We'll touch on some other key performers. We'll talk about the youngsters not playing very much in this game. Blazers go 8 deep and just don't play guys too many minutes. That's real, and it happened. And then I want to talk a little bit about what do they do? They look good. This is their best stretch. What do they do from here? That's what we'll do. But first, before we go any further, let's do what we do. Your fastest recap in the West. Blazers win 121-119 in overtime. We'll pick it up with 32 seconds left in the overtime period. Bradley Beal makes a layup. The Blazers are now up by 1, and the Suns are going to play it out. They're going to say, okay, we are going to get a stop. We have a timeout. We're going to get the ball back, and we're going to win this game in overtime. And the Blazers run out the clock late. Anthony Simons takes a difficult little runner in the paint that comes off the glass hard. Or did it hit the rim? They don't know, but DeAndre Ayton grabs the rebound because it came off so awkwardly on a challenging shot. And when they look at it again, they do blow the play dead. They look at it again. Oh, it didn't hit the shot clock. Blazers have 4 seconds left and just 13 seconds to go on the clock. The Suns, 4 seconds of defense. You're going to get the ball back down 1. Blazers get the ball back into Jeremy Grant. He gets up a 3-pointer off the mark, but the Suns don't grab the rebound. You know who does. Dominayton. DeAndre Ayton grabs the rebound. Suns forced to foul. DA hits 2 free throws. The Blazers, as they had elected not to do incorrectly at the end of regulation, choose to foul intentionally. Brad Beal goes to the line, hits 2 free throws. It's a 1-point game. Blazers get the ball back into who else? DeAndre Ayton steps to the line, hits 2 free throws. 4 huge free throws, 2 huge offensive rebounds. Blazers back up 3 with 5.5 seconds left. Suns take their final timeout. Blazers have fouled, right? So the Suns are aware that a quick foul is coming. They get the ball into Devin Booker in the corner earlier in the evening. Devin Booker had become the Suns franchise's all-time leading scorer, passing Walter Davis with a left-wing 3-pointer. Can Devin Booker be a hero late in this one? Well, Deni Avdija closes out way too hard. Crowds Booker's landing space. Booker flopped and drew the foul, but Deni was up under him and fouled him. It was just both things are true at the same time. Because Devin Booker shooting a corner 3. Deni Avdija, hard closeout, fouls him. Devin Booker, an 89% free throw shooter who's 10 of 10 from the free throw line, steps to the line for 3 with 5 seconds left and a chance to tie the game. First one, Cash, doesn't even hit the rim. Second one, Cash, barely hits the rim. Now Devin Booker has hit 11 when he steps to the line. He's hit 13 consecutive free throws, an 89% free throw shooter on the year. He's sitting on 34 points. He's been good in this game, maybe missed a couple threes that he wish he had back, but he's been good in this game and he leaves it short. brick. DeAndre Ayton, of course, gets the rebound, goes back to the free throw line, is fouled, makes the first, misses the second. Suns do not get the rebound in the scramble, and the clock expires 1:21-119. That's your fastest recap in the West. This game was tied 31-31 after one. Blazers actually down 6 at halftime. The Suns had a nice little second quarter, and the Blazers only scored 18 points in the second. Their offense really started to sputter, but a late flurry in the third quarter gave the Blazers the lead heading back into the fourth. Tumani hit 2 threes, Anthony Simons hit a 3, and then the game came down in regulation down to the final 90 seconds. The Suns actually had the lead and an open corner 3 for Kevin Durant, but he out-Fukumina'd it. He shot an open corner 3 off the corner of the backboard. Blazers go the other way. Anthony Simons finds DeAndre Ayton for a dunk. Blazers take the lead back, but you have a clinging to a lead with a minute left. They couldn't hang on. Anthony Simons hit what would have been a give them a stronger lead, a foot on the line step back 2, and then the Blazers. The Blazers get a stop, get a bucket, and have a chance now to push themselves up by 3 or 4. Jeremy Grant gets a dunk, but the Blazers don't foul in the closing seconds of regulation. And particularly weird because Grayson Allen drives into the paint and they kick it back out. As soon as he's dribbling in the lane, you have to foul him. They kick it back out, swing. Royce O'Neal hits a 3 that ties it at 107. Anthony Simons shot at the end of regulation is blocked, and you go to overtime, pick it up with 30 seconds left. As you heard before, that's your fast recap in the West, 121-119. Again, I recapped it twice. I gave you all 53 minutes of it. DeAndre Ayton, monster game, 25 points, 20 rebounds. Jeremy Grant, I don't think he played very good on offense at all, but he was pretty darn good on defense. He had 14 points, 5 boards, and 4 assists. 24 for Deni Avdija. He was really good early in this game. The Blazers offense, like I said, kind of sputtered in that second quarter. Deni Avdija was their best offensive player in the first half. Anthony Simons had some really brutal turnovers. The 3 of his turnovers were very loud, but hit a big bucket late in regulation to give the Blazers a brief lead. Would have been more, but he finishes with 13. And awesome Tumani game, 5 threes, 17 points. Blazers only played 8 guys. Scoot played 22 minutes. Shaedon Sharpe played 19 minutes, and Don McClingan just 9.5 minutes in this game. They leaned on their dudes. When it goes to overtime, the numbers are like most coaches don't sub in overtime, or they do like offense, defense, maybe one sub. But so it was always going to be kind of like this to some extent once you got to OT. And by like this, I mean that your starters are going to get 5 extra minutes that the guys on the bench don't get. So we'll talk a little bit about that. The youngsters not playing very much in the second segment, but I want to focus on Ayton here briefly for a second. Chauncey Billups called this maybe his best game in a Blazer uniform. And I think that was in some ways a response to a question he had received after a recent Ayton game and said, hey, is this as well as you've seen Ayton play? Oh, he said, he played really well against Miami, and he also played really well in this game too, and we're so happy to have him. But I think the reason why Chauncey said that this was DeAndre Ayton's best game is not just the eye-popping box score, right? 25 and 20 is a monster night. The big rebounds at the end of overtime, the free throws to seal the game. He makes 5 of 6 free throws, and he didn't even he didn't need the last one that he missed. And maybe there's actually some art to missing that one with 3 seconds left and the Suns out of timeouts, knowing that getting a live rebound and going end to end is pretty tough. But in any case, he was really good down the stretch. But I think why Chauncey Billups said that he liked this game from Ayton so much is because Ayton started the game 6 of 17 from the floor. He finished 9 of 22. He only made 3 of his last 5 shots. And obviously he took a bunch of free throws at the end of the game and finished with 8 free throws. But he took 6 of them in the final 8 seconds of overtime. It wasn't like he was living at the stripe before that. He just happened to he got fouled and he made clutch ones, and you applaud him for that, absolutely. But DeAndre Ayton to play as physical as he did, he played some pretty good defense down the stretch, and the Blazers tried to go small. The Suns kind of ditched their center lineup. Nick Richards was terrible. Mason Plumlee was fine, but he's just not enough of a threat on offense to have them feel comfortable with him out there. It's too easy to double team Mason, and then too easy to double team off Mace, and then make him have the ball in his hands a lot and be a decision maker. And the guys they want the ball in their hands a lot being decision makers are Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. So the Suns went small. The Blazers matched that small lineup and took Ayton out, and the Suns just matchup hunted Anthony Simons relentlessly during that stretch. And they said, okay, that's not going to work. We need a little bit of more size in the paint to make it a little more size on the court to make it so you can't just chase this matchup down. You can put Anthony Simons in different situations. You can put DA on the ball, so the switches are a little bit like you can't hunt the switch the same way because you can switch before they get up there and all those things. Like putting Ayton back in the game was important for the Blazers because that small ball lineup was getting torched. And the Blazers didn't take great advantage of the Suns being small on offense, but Ayton powered them to that win when they needed it. Usually when DeAndre Ayton has monster games, he goes 13 of 14 from the floor. A perfect 16 of 16, 10 of 12, right? Like he has these big chunky box score games where it's like he had 20 and 20 and barely missed any shots. Like that, usually the typical good DA game is that he scores 10 in the first quarter on perfect shooting or 4 or 5 shooting or whatever it is, 5 of 6 shooting. That would get you your 10 points the way DeAndre Ayton plays. And he's just making 15-footers and got it going. He didn't have it going in this one. He struggled. Again, 6 of 17. I believe he started 1 of 9, but 6 of 17 through 3 quarters. Like, this was not this great Ayton night in terms of efficiency. But he stuck with it. He played really hard. He delivered when you needed him to. And that's why Billups complimented him, because it was like, we need DA to stay in the fight even when he has these type of nights. He was really good in this game, and they don't win it without him. This was, they don't win the game without Denny Avdi. He was really good too. They don't win the game without Toumani Camara. He was really good too. You see those things. They might have won the game without Ant and Jeremy. They weren't very good. I thought Jeremy was pretty good on defense, and I thought Anthony Simons made some plays, but this was not like a notably good Anthony Simons night by any means. I think the some of the matchup hunting stuff gets a little bit overstated, but like you put Scoot in there, Kevin Durant's also going to hunt Scoot Henderson. But I think the Blazers this is what they do. They win all of their games. They've won 8 of 9. They're 8. If you want to, sometimes the box scores will have, or the advanced standings will have, expanded standings will have last 10. They're 8 and 2 in their last 10, and their losses are to Houston and Oklahoma City. Every time they've played a team that's not very good, they've beat them. I thought, like, obviously Milwaukee's pretty good and the Suns are fine. I would say my takeaway from these two Suns games is that I admittedly am a Suns skeptic, and coming out of this game, I remain extremely skeptical of the Suns. They are not good. they are not good in a way that feels very, very, I feel very real about the Suns being kind of bad. But the Blazers handled them on Saturday night, and then, comfort, and it's a big night for Devin Booker to move into historically important night for Devin Booker. You knew you were going to get a good Suns showing, and the Blazers responded. They made plays when they needed to close the game. In overtime, they survived the final 90 seconds and got enough done for themselves with a big Jeremy Grant bucket and a big Anthony Simons bucket late. They did enough to get this to OT, although they probably made a mistake in the final defensive possession, and they were good in overtime and get a win, and this is what they do. They just win basketball games. Let's talk some more about it, and also the youngsters in the second segment. Join me there, won't ya? First, though, I want to tell you that today's episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. What are some of your green flags? We often hear about the red flags we should avoid, but what if we focused more on identifying the positive signs in our relationships? Those green flags. If you're not sure what they look like, therapy can help you identify them, actively practice them, and even embody that green flag energy yourself. Whether you're dating, married, building a friendship, or just working on yourself, therapy can help you form relationships that love you back. Whether you're looking for love from others or learning how to love yourself, therapy helps you develop healthy boundaries and improves your communication skills. It empowers you to set clear expectations and express your needs. Therapy provides tools for managing conflict in ways that strengthen your connections rather than break them down. BetterHelp makes it easy by offering online therapy with over 30,000 licensed therapists to choose from. And if you need to switch therapists, you can do so at no extra cost anytime. Discover your relationship green flags with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. All right. Blazers, this game was fun, to be clear. It was a fun game. I thought the Moda Center had great energy in this game. It hasn't always, and the building was not full by any means. But one of the moments I really liked in the third quarter, Devin Booker hit a three. Everyone in the arena kind of knew, and certainly Suns bench kind of knew, like that was a big bucket. I don't know if everyone in the arena knew. That might be overstating it a little bit. Certainly my colleagues on press row were aware of it, and there was a little bit of cheer, right? And the Suns fans for sure knew, and there's some Suns fans in the arena knowing it was a big night, and they started cheer. And the Blazers came down the other way, and they got a bucket, and the arena popped. They said, "No, you are not going to cheer for the visitors in our building," and the arena popped. And the energy was really good in this game, and the Blazers played well. And there's the first overtime game of the season, and they just continued to win. And this wasn't, they've been blowing teams out. I mentioned that their point differential was over 12 in their 8 games prior to this, and that includes a loss to OKC. If you just look at the wins, they've been beating teams by an average of 15 points, over 15 points. Like they've been smoking teams. And this wasn't a game where they were smoking a team. This was a game when they had to, They had a lead after 3. They gave it away. They had, they were trailing with under 2 minutes left and had to respond. The Suns forced overtime on a pretty bad defensive possession that Denny Avdia, when they did not foul at the end of overtime and gave up that, or end of regulation, gave up that 3, he was screaming. He said, I think some mostly nice words, but he did say the word foul very loudly. You have to foul, screaming. Blazers got the ball back with like a second left. You get, as soon as Grayson Allen drives, you got to hack him. But in any case, the Blazers played well. This game was fun, but it's just undeniable looking at this box score. Like, Scoot Henderson was pretty good. He had 15 and 6. I don't think this was an elite Scoot game, and I think really what happened was Scoot kind of had a good third quarter. I don't think he was very good in the first half, but he had a really good third quarter. And you know what happens after the third quarter is that they play the fourth quarter. They play more basketball. They play 12 more minutes after that. And Scoot ended up playing 22 minutes and 24 seconds, 22 and a half minutes. I thought Shaedon Sharpe was like kind of just bad in this game. He's just bad. Not awful, but kind of just like, oh yeah, he's not having a good night. I don't think he was very good on defense. He had 9 points in 19 minutes. It's just undeniable looking at the box score that it's like, those dudes should play more. I think Donovan Clingan looked bumpy out there, and Ayton was playing really well, particularly late in the game, like when he kind of found his footing, and he was playing well despite not shooting poorly, because he was just playing hard and getting rebounds and being physical, and Ayton was solid throughout, even if he couldn't find his shot, and his coach really liked that he was solid throughout when he couldn't find a shot, so he was going to reward him, right? And I don't think, like, I'm not sitting here telling you that like Donovan Clingan has to play, but it would make more sense if he played a little more. Make more sense if he played like 18 minutes. It would make more sense if Scoot Henderson, even in a bench role, was earmarked for a guaranteed 28. And particularly on a night when he was playing pretty well, I kind of know why they went back to Simons, because of the way they were guarding him as a shooter. He was getting some attention that was helping them run some screen actions. Like I understand the basketball stuff, but like this is sort of the big picture thing. It's like, maybe just reward Scoot and help him figure it out. This wasn't a night where you needed to like send his butt to the bench because he was struggling. This wasn't like a teacher night. It might have been a teaching night for Shaedon Sharpe to some extent, but it wasn't a teaching night for Scoot. He was kind of playing fine. He had a legitimately good third quarter. They could have let him run a little bit more. And I just wish they were earmarked. Like, I wish you're talking 28 and 25 minutes for those two gentlemen interchangeably. Like, I don't care who plays what. In the grand scheme of things, and I'll say this for the 1 millionth time, I don't think their developmental curve is hindered by playing 10 minutes less than they should on any given night. It just doesn't really make sense to me. That said, like, the Blazers needed, if we just look at minutes with minus overtime, that's what I'm going to read you some minutes minus overtime. So we're taking out 5 minutes of action here. Jeremy Grant would have played 36. That's kind of fine. Maybe too many, but kind of fine. I think 33 would be fine. Tumani would have played 40. That's a ton, but he was great. He was really good in this game. They needed, like, he's like, you know who could use Tumani Kamara? The Phoenix freaking Suns, right? 30 37 for DeAndre Ayton. Denny Avdia played 38 in regulation, 38 and a half. Anthony Simons played 37, 36-44 in regulation. Like, those are heavy minutes. Those are just heavy minutes for a coach trying to win the game. And they played 8 dudes. They didn't go 9 deep. I don't know what happened to Chris Murray. He's gone. We may never see him again. Delano Banton's out of the rotation. Rob Williams was listed as a DNP CD, but he's in this box score. But he was not on the injury list. I apologize. He just, he's unavailable he was unavailable with a hand injury, but he just didn't play, and they're not playing him. They're playing Klingon 10 minutes instead of playing with 3 centers like they were early in the year. They're playing like a more sensible rotation, but guys get squeezed. More sensible rotation in terms of like trying to win the games. I think it makes sense. They're rolling right now. Like I think it makes sense when you get really close to the situation. They're rolling right now. This is the best they've played. Some of the reason that it's the best they've played is because they've leaned into this bigger lineup. Some of the reasons that they've leaned into the bigger lineup is because, this allows you to defend a little bit better. It puts more size on the glass to rebound. Fewer mistakes with vets. Like you kind of, Tumani and Denny have been really good, so you're playing them. I think on the whole, Anthony Simons has been better than Scoot Henderson, and he's obviously earned the trust of the coach. Although this tonight was probably not a night where Simons was definitely better than Scoot. But it's I kind of get why they've leaned into this. DeAndre Ayton's playing really well. They're going to roll with him while he's playing really well. This is his best stretch probably as a member of the Blazers. I know he played well at the end of last season, but it's a very different context than what he's playing in right now. It's I get what they're doing. I just think it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird. I would say it's dumb and weird if I had to use 2 words. I think it speaks to kind of this sort of dueling space the Blazers find themselves in. The phrase I used in the past is organizational alignment. I don't know if this is proof of being unaligned. I think it is perhaps that, but it is just how do you balance absolutely trying to win games when you are playing your best, and how do you balance what's good for the health of the sort of general big picture? I think you could make a pretty good case that if you had played Shaedon Sharpe another 6 minutes in this game, they would have lost. He was having that much trouble. I don't think you can make the case with Scoot necessarily, but I think you play Shaedon Sharpe 25 minutes in this game and have Tumani or Denny on the bench, you might lose. Have Jeremy on the bench, you might lose just because of the defense from those guys. Having those 3 gentlemen to throw at Kevin Durant, Devin Booker a bunch helps. And so I think this is kind of a weird spot they find themselves in. The trade deadline is Thursday afternoon. It's Monday evening, and the Blazers are playing their best basketball of the season. But there isn't right now a carved-out role for their most recent draft picks to get on the floor for even a 23rd minute. Let's talk about what do they do now? Because they are playing well and they are balling, and one of the reasons they're doing that is precisely because of the shortened rotation and the emphasis on not the 2 young, recently drafted guards. Join me in that third segment. Let's unpack all of the Join me there, won't ya? First, though, let us talk about FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook, and we made it to Super Bowl 59. 1 game, 2 teams, endless possibilities. You may remember the Kansas City Chiefs from playing in this game each of the past 2 seasons, and the Philadelphia Eagles from playing in this game a couple years ago against these same Chiefs. Well, if you want to predict the first touchdown or call the MVP in a familiar setting, or even bet on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. Plus, they got live betting all game long, so you can adjust, update, renew your bets as the game unfolds from kickoff to final whistle. Live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens. Plus, the app is super easy to navigate, so there's always stuff to get involved with. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's icing on the cake, my friends. Download the app or head over to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5. And if you win that $5 bet, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, an official partner of Super Bowl 59. Still a Bass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond. And you are still listening to Locked On Blazers. I think the Blazers are in an interesting spot, right? After 3.5 seasons, Chauncey Billups is coaching his butt off. For the first time in, I think, his tenure with the Trailblazers, I feel confident that the decisions that Chauncey Billups makes night in and night out positively impact this team to win the games. The gentleman he played in this game helped the Blazers win. His decisions on who is on the court impacted them positively in order to generate the outcome that many of you probably hoped for, a entertaining overtime victory against a team with a better record than them. I'm not even going to call the Suns better than the Blazers right now. They're fine. They got Kevin Durant. He's good. He did not look good. He missed some wide open threes. That would have changed this game. Devin Booker missed some makeable shots as well. I think the Blazers maybe survived with some luck there, but you don't give back the luck. You watch the streamers come down, you give DeAndre Ayton a big ol' hug, and you say, thanks for bailing us out of there, big fella. Way to make your free throws and grab huge offensive rebounds. Way to stick with it in a game that your shot wasn't falling. You don't have to apologize for getting a win. And Chauncey Billups, quite frankly, should not apologizing for figuring out a lineup that works really well and has generated positive results for 2 straight weeks. Hell no. That's the job. Sort of. The Blazers have been impressive during this stretch. Entertaining, impressive. This was the first of their wins that has been, they beat Charlotte by 5, but they were, up 7 with a minute left. The Hornets never really threatened that game, but that wasn't a blowout by any means. But they've handled teams recently. They've handled them. They're playing really well. And it's because Denny has been so good, and because Tumani has been so good, and because Jeremy Grant has been so good. After the game, Anthony Simons mentioned that last year it just had this feeling when he would go out there. It said I gotta try to score 25 and get 8 assists, or we're gonna lose. And he felt like that going into games. There was pressure on him to go score and get buckets. He said it doesn't feel like that in this game. He finished with 13 points and 10 assists. He just got off the ball when he needed to. After a little while, I think he took some. I thought his second half was a much better managed game than his first half, is how I'll say it. I thought he had some questionable shots and some really dicey turnovers early, but I thought Ant played a good floor game in the second half. He just didn't. This wasn't a game where he shot particularly well. 4 of 16 for 13 points. It wasn't his night, and mostly what he does is score, and when he does score, you kind of feel it. But Ant got them where they needed to be at the end of the game. He got them where they needed to be at the end of the game. Jeremy Grant had a huge bucket at the end of regulation got a three-pointer blocked by Kevin Durant, tracked down the rebound, got inside and dunked. A huge bucket to put the Blazers back up 1, right? But to put the Blazers up 3. Those guys played well. Tumani was great. Denny was awesome early. He ended up fouling out, but Denny had his, I mentioned he's had some sort of quiet scoring nights. He came back and had 24 on 8 of 12 shooting. He did what he did and gets himself to the free throw line for 5 attempts. He's physical. He's making plays. He's playing with the force that makes Denny special. These dudes are all playing well. It's clicking for them. I asked in a prior episode, or maybe I was worried about it, saying I hope that the Blazers don't treat these victories as proof of concept. I'm going to remove the word worry from my vocabulary, in part because I have sworn off some sort of mild panic about the Blazers' larger direction until after the trade deadline. I'm going to wait till we get to Thursday evening, and then I might do some panicking or something. I'm not gonna talk much more clear about big picture stuff and my opinions one way or another based on what they do at the trade deadline. But they're in a weird spot. I'm not. It's not even I'm not even saying that I'm worried this is proof of concept. If this is these guys are pretty good. These guys are pretty good. They're playing well right now. Obviously, they've taken advantage of some soft schedule stuff, but I keep saying, it's when you are winning by big margins, the soft schedule is not important. Because it's like, yeah, you're taking care of business. You're beating the snot out of bad teams. That's the indicator, right? That's the indicator. So I'm like, certainly this has been, they've had a lighter schedule and they've won the games, but they've also won the games. And this was obviously like a coin flip game and they won the coin flip, but they played well to put themselves in that position and they responded when they need to put themselves in that position. So when they are heading into the trade deadline, it's like, I don't think that they weren't going to have a fire sale at any point. You will recall that one of my bold predictions for the season was that only one of the opening day starters gets traded. I'd be surprised if any Simons, Grant, or DeAndre Ayton get traded at the trade deadline, quite frankly. But what I am curious about is, does this week inform how actively they try to move those gentlemen? We may never really hear the details on it, and I don't think we've heard any outside reporting that suggests that the Blazers have shopped those guys or that there's been interest in them because of sort of their level in the league and the way reporting works right now. But like, I would be curious, I guess, to wonder, to like, does Chauncey Billups, coaching the best he's coached in 3.5 years during this stretch and like finding something that works, do the Blazers like change their tune and think that Chauncey's part of the future? Do they change their tune and think that Jeremy and Ant and DA are part of the future, and that not just that they're unable to move them, but they don't want to move them? Do they think like, do they let this good stretch inform their decisions, or do they take this larger sample? For me, I'm always looking bigger, right? Like I would always try to expand the lens as wide as possible. But the fact that they are, the games early in the season informed how they're playing now. They weren't playing very well. Guys have improved and now they're playing better. Like that is in some ways the progression of a basketball team. I am curious what they do. I'm fascinated by it because this has been a good stretch. They are playing well. They are getting the most out of guys. And the coach is doing that. And yet they have this weird thing where the young players, each of their 3 lottery picks in the last 3 drafts, are not even cracking the half the game mark and are kind of, on the outside looking in for a team that, is factually 21-29. They seem like they are playing really well, but it's not like they're right in the mix. And if they just like kind of, the beginning of the season exists too. So I'm fascinated to see how it all works. We're still a ways from that because the Blazers play the second night of a back-to-back on Tuesday evening. You were listening to Tuesday, February 4th show. They play the Pacers, who are traveling from Utah. Both teams, second night of a back-to-back, usually makes for some ugly basketball games, ugly basketball early until guys kind of find their stride. The second game of back-to-back for both teams. The Blazers obviously went to overtime and had 4 dudes crack the 40-minute mark. Will that mean that Shaedon Sharpe and Scoot Henderson get to play a whole bunch of minutes? Almost certainly not. Don't kid yourself. I think this week and the decisions the Blazers make will tell us a lot about how they feel. Obviously not going to change the coach or whatever between now and then, but like, what moves do they make? And then how do they treat the post-deadline stretch of the season? What are they committed to and where do they go? Because they are hooping right now. They're hooping. And if you believe that this works, maybe you just keep on hooping. But obviously priorities can shift in a hurry in this fine franchise. That is going to do it for today's show. Tomorrow's show, come back. We'll talk the Pacers game and all that goes into it. Trade deadline this week, so look for your trade deadline rumor roundup and what to look for coming in your feed on Thursday ahead of the noon Pacific time deadline. And then they play Thursday night against the Kings and Zach LaVine. And we'll talk about everything you need to know post-deadline in Friday's program. It's what you do. It's what we do. And probably what you do too, I hope. 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.